In this video, we are going to be talking about pronouns. So pronouns are words that are referential. They either have antecedents or postcedents. Antecedents are words that come before, where postcedents are words that come after. Right. So I might say, for instance, Heather, she was running late. Or I could say, she couldn't believe it, Heather was running late. There are a variety of different ways that you can do this, but pronouns always refer back to kind of a person or an object that was previously stated. There are different types of pronouns. So there are subject and object pronouns. Subject pronouns tend to be personal, and they're called subject pronouns because they function like subjects in a sentence. Okay. Which I think is helpful to be aware of. Object pronouns are kind of similar in that regard, except instead they function like objects in a sentence. And I think that'll make a little bit more sense as I start giving you examples of them. So when we are talking about subject pronouns, we are talking about words like I, right? She, he, we, they, it, and you, right? All of these are subject pronouns. We can say we ran to the store. Okay. We is functioning like the subject of this particular sentence. Now, when we're looking at object pronouns, some of them are going to be a little bit different. Instead of I, for instance, we're going to have me. Instead of she, we're going to have her. Instead of he, it would be him. Instead of we, it would be us. Instead of they, it would be them. Interestingly, it and you both remain the same, right? So as an example, we wouldn't say us ran to the store, right? I mean, we could, but people might have something to say about it, because ran is a typical verb, but us is an object pronoun, right? So we might, for instance, instead say, she ran us to the store, right? Whereas us here is instead functioning as more of an indirect object, right? But it's filling an object role. So it is important to be aware that we do have these two sets of pronouns. Recently, gender in relationship to pronouns has become quite interesting. So one of the kind of common questions is about the pronoun they. So it can be used as a singular pronoun, right? We commonly use it when gender is unknown, right? But increasingly it's also used for gender neutral purposes enough that the word them self as a reflexive pronoun has been introduced. So they is completely fine being used as a singular. Lastly, we'll talk about possessive pronouns. So very simply, these indicate possession when they precede, so come before a noun, they function like determiners. Okay. So important bit of information to have. So let's go ahead then and talk about common possessive pronouns. So instead of I, you would have my, right? Or sometimes mine. Instead of she, you would have hers, or sometimes her. Instead of he, you would have his. Instead of we, you would have our or ours. Instead of they, you would have their or theirs, right? Instead of, I'm trying to remember, what are the other ones? It, you would have its. And instead of you would have your or yours, right? So these are fairly common pronouns, possessive ones. And just as a reminder, you would need to have their car for it to function like a determiner, or his book, right? It would need to be followed by a noun in order to function like a determiner, because then both of these would be noun phrases. Okay, and determiners appear in noun phrases. So in another video, I'll talk much more concretely about other types of pronouns, but these are the most common types of personal pronouns that we will come across in American English.